Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Artist First World Radio Network, home of the best new music you've never heard and home of the best new talk shows you need to hear. Please don't forget to visit our archive page at www.artistfirst.com, where you can hear all our past shows for free and on demand. You are tuning into High School Football America. This show airs every Thursday at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. For more information and to listen to past shows, please visit artistfirst.com/jefffisher.htm. And now here's your host of High School Football America, Jeff Fisher.
Thank you very much, Corey, and good evening, high school football fans across America. Welcome to High School Football America for August the 18th. Been a fun week for us as we've traveled the country, started in Chicago and Illinois, buzzed our way into Pennsylvania. Got to talk a little Pennsylvania football coming up in the show, and now coming to you from New York City tonight and Manhattan. So you can really feel the flames starting to turn up on the 2011 season. The regular season began last weekend, 33 games in Alaska and Hawaii, and it's week 2 this week in both of those states. And now joining the party, we got some more states in there. Have 5 of them: Indiana, Kentucky, Mississippi, North Carolina, and Utah get things kicked off this week. And there's also a limited schedule of games in Alabama and Georgia, where both states are starting with kickoff classics. And then there's the battle for bragging rights between Arizona and Nevada with 2 games in the Solenberger Classic. Now remember, you can keep up to date with all high school football news every day. We change it up from every state. All you have to do is go to the High School Football Wire, which is at highschoolfootballamerica.com. Also able to follow High School Football America on Facebook and Twitter. Just go to the website, click the icons at the top of the page. Otherwise, the Twitter handle for us is HSFB America. And if you have any comments during the show, please feel free to contact us on the High School Football America Facebook page. Just search High School Football America. Click like, and then you're a part of the team. So now let's get right into what we have tonight, a big show. We've got 4 guests on the show. We'll start with a very good friend of mine, a great young football coach from Pennsylvania, Phil Stambaugh of Pius X High School in Roseto. Stambaugh, an All-American quarterback at Lehigh University, then a backup quarterback in the NFL with the Jacksonville Jaguars. Now he's in his second year as the head coach at his alma mater, and what makes that so special? Well, Pius is the smallest school in America playing 11-man football, and we'll talk about that in just a little bit. We'll then speak with Mark Tabb, whose latest book, The Sacred Acre, has just been released. The book looks at the small Iowa town of Parkersburg and its head coach, Ed Thomas, who was murdered by a former player a couple of years ago. However, it's not about that horrible incident and how it all ended. It's a true story of grace and forgiveness that inspired the entire country. We'll then venture north to Alaska to talk with Jason Caldarera of Service High School, who, with his team, kicked off the 2011 season last Thursday in Hawaii. So we'll talk about the Fire and Ice Bowl coming up a little bit later. And we'll wrap up with Tony Heath, the head coach at Pearland High School outside of Houston. Heath is the engineer who turned around a program that had a losing record in the early 90s. Last year, the Oilers won the Texas High School Class A 5A championship by beating number 1 at the time, Euless Trinity. I want to thank our sponsors for tonight's show, Blitz Group, here to help us with all our media strategy needs. For more information on them, go to their website at blitzgroupllc.com. High School Rudy Awards also on board tonight. Go to highschoolrudyawards.com. You can learn how to nominate a player who defines the greatness that is High School Football America with players, the 4 C's: character, courage, contribution, and commitment. And sponsored tonight by the National High School Coaches Association. Go to nhsca.com to learn more and learn how to become a member. And if you'd like to learn how to become a sponsor here on High School Football America, just drop me an email. Just write me at jeff@highschoolfootballamerica.com, and I'll get you out a media kit for that. Time to take our first break, and when we return, we're going to kick off the interviews with a trip just south of the Pocono Mountains in Pennsylvania. Phil Stambaugh of Pius X High School. When we come back, this is High School Football America on the Artist First Radio Network.
The hottest technology in the world isn't being developed in Silicon Valley. In the United States Navy, more top-secret technologies are being created than ever before. Incredible machines made of stealth materials that fly by themselves. The only problem with these incredible technologies? It's a shame the enemy can't see them. To learn more, call 1-800-USA-NAVY or visit Navy.com. Navy, accelerate your life. You've heard of being named All-Conference, but only one organization has earned the classification of being all-world: the United States Navy. Whether it's humanitarian efforts, fighting terrorism, or protecting America's freedoms, the Navy is the team that helps us all win big. To learn how you could make it to the big league, call 1-800-USA-NAVY or visit Navy.com. Navy, accelerate your life. The Navy Seahawk helicopter has a lift capacity of over 6,000 pounds. But when it comes to helping those around the world who need it most, they lift the hopes of millions. To learn more about how the Navy is the best place to do great things, call 1-800-USA-NAVY or visit Navy.com. It will do you and the world a load of good. Navy, accelerate your life.
And now back to the show with your host, Jeff Fisher.
Thank you very much, Corey. Welcome back to High School Football America. Just a reminder, if you ever miss any of the shows, you can always catch them in our archives. Just go to highschoolfootballamerica.com, click on the radio show page, and we'll have all of the archives there for you. Last week's show just posted a great one with the number 1 and number 2 winningest coaches in America, John McKissick from Somerville in South Carolina and J.T. Curtis from John Curtis in Louisiana. You don't want to miss that one. Click on that and check it out. It's all free and downloadable. Now, coming up later in the show tonight, Tony Heath, the head coach at Pearland High School in Texas, the 5A champs there. We'll also talk with Mark Tabb, the author of The Sacred Acre, the Ed Thomas story out of Iowa, where the coach was murdered by his player back in 2009, and how that community has bounced back and supported the parents of the player that was convicted of the murder. And we'll then wrap up with a chat in Alaska with Jason Caldarera of Service High School. His team kicked things off last week, the first game in America, Thursday night in Hawaii, and we'll talk about that. Well, we're going to take a stop right now, though, in Pennsylvania, which is where I was earlier this week for Camp Royal. Pius X High School in Roseto, Pennsylvania. I love this story, doing a documentary on it. It's one of the smallest high school programs playing 11-man football in America. 54 boys on this year's roster. Not a bad number for a school that has less than 100 boys between 9th and 12th grades. Led by Phil Stambaugh, an All-American quarterback at Lehigh University, plus played in the NFL with the Jacksonville Jaguars, along with several other teams. Last year, Pius 8-4. This year, the Royals, very, very talented, ranked number 4 by one rating service in the state. They stand a great chance at playing for a state championship, but that's down the road in December. But right now, let's bring in head coach Phil Stambaugh to talk about this year's team. Welcome to the show, Phil.
Hey, thanks for having me, Jeff.
Yeah, and I appreciate it. I know you just left camp there. You're driving back home to get a little rest. Yeah, 4 straight days of keeping the kids locked up there, and we'll talk about that in a second. But let's just kind of start with things. We've talked to you before, but never on this show. Let's talk about the smallness of the school and the community of 1,600. Give the listeners a little bit of a snapshot of life in Roseto and how football fits into it.
The size of the school is small, and you know the size of our town is even smaller. I mean, it's a town with no stoplights. You know, it's basically about 3 streets wide, and that's about all there is to Roseto. It's a small community, very close knit, very family oriented, and that's the way our program is. You know, we have kids that come into our school from all different areas. If we just tried to have a football program or a school with just the kids from Roseto or Bangor, there wouldn't be enough people to keep the doors open. But you know, we are fortunate that we do draw kids from all over our area, and it's a special place, and that's why they come to our program, and they love it there.
And what's also made it special is the fact that you've got a lot of last names that are similar through 2 and 3 generations on all that. You've made the state semifinals twice in the last 15 years. So tell me a little bit about the basis of this program, how it all started, and where that winning tradition began.
Our program started in the 50s, 1955, and we progressed to have very competitive and very good teams through the 60s and 70s. There was no district playoffs or state playoffs for us at that time, but we had very strong teams, undefeated teams, and some very talented athletes came through our program in the 50s, 60s, and 70s. In the 80s, we finally got into a league. Unfortunately, we were playing against some very good teams from New Jersey in the Delaware River Conference. And in the 80s, Pius football was down. And in the late 80s and early 90s, when I started to be a player there, and other guys in my class, we kind of resurrected the program and got it back on the winning track. 1994, we won the Eastern Conference Championship. The following year, we won a district championship and played one game away from the state final. And from there, it kind of snowballed, and kids wanted to come back into the program, and they started to learn about our tradition. And the 80s was kind of put to rest in the end of the 90s and the early 2000s. Pius really came back on the map, and where we're at now in 2011, we're really pointed in the right direction, and we have a special group of guys here, and I feel very confident that we'll compete for a district championship. We've played in the district championship the last 2 years and been a runner-up. This year we want to get that gold, and then, we'll see what happens when we get into the state playoffs.
Talking with Phil Stambaugh, the head coach at Pius X High School in Roseto, Pennsylvania, and talked about the smallness of the school and the little town that can. You're not in or you haven't been for a while in a league that came back with the All-American Conference last year. In some ways, you're outsiders. You and I have talked about this, and I've written about it. You're very proud, though, of the fact that you're kind of the little team that can. So why, as a Pius alum and, a guy that played in the NFL, do you stay at Pius and educate these young men?
I stay there, Jeff, for the kids. Those kids are just like me. They sit in the same seats. They go to the same school. They play for the same team, and that's special to me because I know how playing for Pius influenced my life. And it's special to me to know that now I'm running the program that made me who I was in college football and eventually in the pros. Not to say that all my players are going to reach those levels, but I'm going to push them and give them every opportunity to get better like I had, like my coaches did for me and the people that surrounded our program did for me. I'm very excited about the kids that we have, and I'm proud of the fact that, we do have 54 kids. People can't figure out why kids come to Pius. Well, why wouldn't you? You have you have a coach that played in the NFL. You're surrounded by coaches and a coaching staff that are all winners and guys that are sergeants and teachers and All-Americans and district champs and all that. I mean, we have that at our small school, and we're competitive every year. We're in the district playoffs every year, so why wouldn't you want to be a part of that? There's an opportunity to play, and it's a program that I truly believe in, and that's why I'm there.
Yeah, now you play in Pennsylvania's smallest Class 1A, but you don't think small. You run a wide-open attack. You amassed 5,000 yards in total offense last year. The offense itself, I've watched it. It's similar to many high-powered college and pro attacks. So tell me a little bit about how you devise that, and then we'll get into some of the players you have this year.
We may be in the lowest classification in Pennsylvania and in the country, but I'll tell you right now, we are not a single-A program. We do not do things like a single-A program. We do things to try and be as good as we can be. We play teams on our schedule, AA, AAA, Quad A. Whoever will play us, we play them. And we've been forced to do that. We're in the All-American League, but that's only 4 games for us. And we have to. We're traveling to Pittsburgh this year. We're traveling to. We're playing a team from Baltimore, Maryland. We play teams wherever we can get games, and I'm just really proud of the fact that we can do that as a small school. We can compete, and our attack is we try and do multiple formations and spread the field and use our athletic ability, and defensively we try and to do the same thing and stop people from hurting us with speed and athleticism.
Let's talk a little bit about the trigger guy on the offense, A.J. Long, a sophomore. Last year set the Pennsylvania freshman record with 2,852 yards, 28 touchdowns. He also ran for 355. Tell us a little bit about A.J., and then we'll get into some of the skill around him.
A.J.'s a kid that has talent. I saw that when he came to Pius as an 8th grader, that he had talent. But A.J.'s also a kid that doesn't waste his talent. He takes advantage every day of the opportunity he has to get better. He's becoming a student of the game. He watches film on his own. He's extremely coachable. He wants to be the best. And I think that's so important in today's day and age because a lot of kids have the talent, they waste it. He doesn't waste it. He makes himself better. He goes to camps in the off season. I mean, not one or two, like 10 or 12. And he puts himself out there, and he gets better, and he learns. And I expect what AJ did last year to be minimal to what he does this year. I'm extremely excited that he's the leader of our team and our program, and he's a great teammate. He's a kid that pushes himself. The guys know on his team that he's going to do everything he can to help them win the game. They don't have to worry about AJ being ready for the game. He'll be ready.
And, of course, great quarterbacks need great skill guys around them, whether it's running backs or wide receivers. You only lost 7 players from last year's 8-4 district runner-up team. Now, who are some of the other kids that hold the key to a good season?
We're returning 25 letter winners from last year off of a 50-man roster. So half of the kids coming back, got varsity playing experience, and that's going to be huge for us. Going into last year, we only had 3 or 4. And we just selected our captains, and the captains, one of them is Matt Camilletti, who's already our career receptions leader. Matt's a very versatile player. He plays tight end for us, wide receiver. We have wide receivers core of Boise Ross, who had great camps in the National Underclassmen Combines and all summer long. I expect very good things for him. He's moving over from more of a running back to a full-time wide receiver. John L. West, Drake Freeman, Joey D'Alessandro. I have guys that can stretch the field. I feel as though we're going to be very difficult to defend with our vertical speed. And then you have 2 running backs that in Nick DeRay and Deshaun Russell that could do an excellent job carrying the football.
Now, you just finished Camp Royal, 3+ days of staying on campus with pure focus on football, 3-a-days and then down to 2-a-days. As you mentioned, I mentioned, you're driving home right now. You slept on the floor there with your girlfriend, your fiancée, the opening night. This is ready to go at this point. So what were the highs and lows at the start of the preseason so far?
Well, unfortunately, Jeff, we've had a couple guys get nicked up in camp. Fortunately, nothing too serious. I hope to be very strong going into week 1 against Pottstown, but right now we have 8 guys that are potential starters for us. When we came into camp, they were starters for us, and those guys are on the sideline right now. So we got to get all of them back and healthy. Having 54 guys is great, but when it gets cut down, it's a tough thing. But on the reverse side of that, we've had so many kids get an opportunity in camp. We're going to make ourselves that much stronger, not only for this year, but in the years to come. And I have freshmen, sophomores, juniors, seniors going the extra mile in practice to make our program better. And that was the key thing for us in camp. I saw was that we're dedicated to the program. We want to be a good team. We want to have a good season, and we've set our goals, and we're going to go after them. And our camp ended on a very high note.
Now let's wrap up with a little bit of a chat about you talking about, you won a district championship, which gets you into the state playoffs. You talk openly about wanting to win that state championship, that some special things can happen there. What do you do as a coach, when you put that out there, that you say you are a state championship caliber team? What do you do to kind of offset that and keep the pressure off of the kids to make sure that it is just one game at a time?
Well, every year we play. We've been in this situation for years in the past where we didn't have the opportunity to win a league title. Now we do. So we put that as one of our goals. But it was always that we wanted to win a district championship. And we know that if we can accomplish that goal, we can then go on to the state playoffs. And once we get there, why not go for it all? But so I want to get the guys to understand and be realistic in the fact that every day you step out in the field, you're not playing for a state championship. You're playing to take strides towards being able to play in that state championship. But every day is not that game. We're not playing for that on a Monday or a Tuesday, but we can get better. We can make ourselves a quality program so that when that opportunity does come, we're ready for it. When the opportunity does come to win the first game of the season, we're ready for it, and so on down the line. And, our major goal is to be home field advantage in the playoffs. We think that we feel as though we're going to be very tough to beat at home. And, once that happens, we win 2 district games, we'll be in the state playoffs. And that's not an unrealistic goal for them. But they have to understand that it's got to be day by day, every practice, every play. And, we're not looking ahead. That's not what it's about. But it is a realistic goal for us. But we have to take the steps necessary to achieve that.
Well, you're a small school, one of the smallest in America, but you have big dreams, and you've also built a big program there. So thanks for taking the time on the way home from camp to talk to us tonight, and best of luck in 2011.
Thanks a lot, Jeff. Good talking to you.
Yep, good talking to you. That is Phil Stambaugh, the head football coach at Pius X High School in Roseto, Pennsylvania. They're a 1A school, but a lot of big things expected out of them this year. I've been there for a little over a year doing a documentary. Check out the videos at highschoolfootballamerica.com on the Pius X football story. Very, very interesting how this tiny little town has produced an NFL quarterback who's come back home to coach and now has kids looking straight at a possible state championship in December in Hershey, Pennsylvania. Going to take another break, and when we come back, High School Football America is going to go to the state of Iowa to talk about a story from Iowa. Mark Tabb, the author of the Sacred Acre, the Ed Thomas story, is going to come and talk about that. You won't want to miss this inspirational story. You're listening to High School Football America on the Artist First Radio Network.
The hottest technology in the world isn't being developed in Silicon Valley. In the United States Navy, more top-secret technologies are being created than ever before. Incredible machines made of stealth materials that fly by themselves. The only problem with these incredible technologies? It's a shame the enemy can't see them. To learn more, call 1-800-USA-NAVY or visit Navy.com. Navy, accelerate your life. You've heard of being named All-Conference, but only one organization has earned the classification of being all-world: the United States Navy. Whether it's humanitarian efforts, fighting terrorism, or protecting America's freedoms, the Navy is the team that helps us all win big. To learn how you can make it to the big league, call 1-800-USA-NAVY or visit Navy.com. Navy, accelerate your life. The Navy Seahawk helicopter has a lift capacity of over 6,000 pounds. But when it comes to helping those around the world who need it most, they lift the hopes of millions. To learn more about how the Navy is the best place to do great things, call 1-800-USA-NAVY or visit Navy.com. It will do you and the world a load of good. Navy, accelerate your life.
And now back to High School Football America with your host, Jeff Fisher.
Thank you very much, Corey. I want to thank the U.S. Navy for being along for the sponsorship tonight. Already been in Pennsylvania on High School Football America. A chat just a few moments ago with Phil Stambaugh of Pius X High School, smallest football team in America, playing 11-man football, 54 kids out of about 90 boys in the school playing football. A little bit later, we're going to head to Alaska. Jason Caldarera of Service High School going to talk about his team's trip down to Hawaii to kick off the 2011 season last Thursday. And we'll wrap things up with Tony Heath, the head football coach at Pearland High School. That school won its first big school Texas championship last year, and he's built a real winner there, and he's going to come on to talk about last year and look ahead to this year. But now we're going to take things to Iowa. Kind of a sad story, but it's got a real good ending. And in June of 2009, the tiny town of Parkersburg, Iowa, just rocked when its head football coach, Ed Thomas, was murdered by a former player. Thomas, more than Aplington-Parkersburg's head coach, he was a community leader on and off the football field, whether it was building young men for the future or helping the town recover from a devastating EF5 tornado in 2008. But Coach Thomas was murdered by a former player, his name Mark Becker. He was convicted of first-degree murder, now serving a life sentence. And out of all of this has come a book that was just released this week called The Sacred Acre, the Ed Thomas story. It was written and co-written by Mark Tabb with the family, and Mark joins me right now to talk about this very inspirational story. Welcome to the show, Mark.
I appreciate you having me on, Jeff.
Yeah, I'm just, it's one of those things where it's such a tragic story. I think all of America knew about it. Coach Thomas was on the cover of Sports Illustrated after it happened. But it's more than just about football fans knowing about his life. So let's kind of just start with the genesis of this book for you and how the family brought you in and got you involved to write this story.
Well, I was contacted through a representative for the family, a man named Tony Wilson, and I think part of a big part of the reason why they had me come in and do this is I've done similar books in that I've done books where there's a tragedy that occurs, and yet the families responded in a very unique way with forgiveness and grace, and were able to see that tragedy turned around and good things come at the end of it. And that was part of the appeal that I had as a writer for the family, is that I've handled stories like this before, and so they got connected with me. I went and met with them, and I just was very, very impressed with them. And as I found out more about Coach Thomas, this was a book that, even though I was familiar a little bit with the story, I think like a lot of people have heard it, and when you hear the name, you're like, oh yeah, I remember that story and all that thing that happened. Well, when I started getting more of the details, I said, this is a story I must help write.
Yeah, that's one of those as an author. You just say, oh, give me a shot at this one. Now, the title, The Sacred Acre, has a real specific meaning to it. I don't know if all the listeners know that, but could you describe what the Sacred Acre is for the listeners?
Well, the Sacred Acre is what everybody in town calls the football field. The only person in Parkersburg who never called it that was Ed Thomas. He called it the field where our team plays. Now, the official name of the field is Ed Thomas Field because he was there for 34 years, won nearly 300 games as a high school football coach. I think its total was like 280 wins, 2 state championships, only had 2 losing seasons out of 34. But the name originally came about, though. He had some buddies of his that he drank coffee with every morning, and they'd start getting a hard time about it because he babied this field in ways that you just can't even imagine, and wouldn't let anybody walk on it. Nobody got to play on that field except for the high school team and only on game nights. And his buddies would say, hey, Eddie, I saw a dandelion growing up on your Sacred Acre over there, and they'd all start laughing. Well, it caught on, and that's what everybody called it, just as a term of respect. He was embarrassed by that, and he's just like, it's just the field where we play.
Yeah, those were some of the great stories that I enjoyed reading after, unfortunately, what happened. Let's give the listeners also a little bit of a thumbnail sketch. Obviously, you said you had not met Coach Thomas, but what type of coach, was he? What kind of man was he? How did he all blend that together as you talked with the family and community leaders?
Well, I think one of the things that really stood out for me, finding out about him as a coach, and one of the things that I did is I went back and I listened to speeches that he gave, because he was very much in demand as a speaker across the state of Iowa and really across the country. He was very well known, the 2005 National Football League High School Coach of the Year. But a story that really, to me, explains what kind of coach he was is he had a player who played for him 4 years, a boy named Rusty Eddy. I say boy, he's in his 30s now. He played at AP back in the late 80s, early 90s. And Rusty Eddy was a player that in his 4 years on the Parkersburg football team, he got into 2 games in 4 years. But he got into trouble a couple of times. There were some problems in his home, and he got into some trouble. The first person in his house when he got in trouble, first voice he heard was Ed Thomas. And he went there and said, Rusty, you're better than this. If you make right choices, your life is, can go in a really good direction. And you just got to, he was just there encouraging him, helping to turn him. Well, then a tragedy struck Rusty's family. His parents had split up, and his father committed suicide. An aunt came in Rusty's bedroom about 6 o'clock in the morning, opened up the door and told him, your dad killed himself. The next voice he heard early in the morning was downstairs, and it's Coach Ed Thomas. And Coach came upstairs, sat on his bed with him, talked with him for a little bit, encouraged him, and told him, said, I'm always going to be here for you. Now, this was the way that he went out of his way for a player who played in 2 games in 4 years. Somebody that it's been so easy for him just to forget. And he would have, even though it was a Class single-A school, he'd have anywhere from 80, 90, and 100 players coming out. This was a total student population of 250. And he would take that kind of time for that kind of player because he was more interested in developing men's character, developing these boys into men of character and integrity than he was wins and losses. And, of course, with that as his priority, the wins and losses, or the wins came, and they came and came and came.
Sure, and that kind of also gives a backdrop to what happened to Mark Becker, a former player who was off the team and had some trouble. So that really kind of sets things up to show what type of man Coach Thomas was. Let's talk about several years later now. That was June 24th, 2009. As you did the book, obviously you spent time in the town. How does the town, before we get to the family, how does the town deal with that wound that I'm sure still exists at some level?
Everywhere I went, every person I met in Parkersburg, they all had a story to tell about Ed Thomas. I was in the barber shop, and it's a typical small town. I live in a small town in Indiana. The movie Hoosiers was filmed in my little town.
Okay.
That's what we are here in Indiana. So Parkersburg is a lot like that. An old town, lots of big mature trees were, except for the part of town that had been wiped out by a tornado. But everywhere I went, people had stories to tell, and there's still that wound that's there, that's very deep, and it's never going to go away. And yet, at the same time, you can just see his fingerprints on all of these lives. Like, we were in the barber shop talking with the barber, and the barber had known Ed since Ed was in college, and he was going on and on about him. And the barber's name was Tom Teeple. And Teep goes, "You got to talk to so and so. She works over in the insurance office down the street." So I go down the street, introduce myself. And there's a woman who works there. It's in late 20s, and I introduced myself, and she told me how she had Ed Thomas as her driver's ed instructor. Now, he was the worst driver in town, but he taught all these kids how to drive. And she said that he just the influence he had, because she also had him for a government class and some other things, that he just took this interest in her life. And, in fact, she had him stand up at her wedding for her. And then she and her husband, they moved off to North Dakota or somewhere, and then they decided they wanted to move back to Parkersburg because whenever they had a family, they wanted their kids to play football for Ed Thomas. And they wanted them to go to the high school and be taught by Ed Thomas. And so Ed found out that she wanted to move back home. He called around and he made recommendations for her to help her get a job. And it was stories like that, one after another, just of this man who deeply cared about people. So, the wounds are there, and they're always going to be there, yet at the same time, there just seems to be so many stories like that just lifted people up as they would share them with me.
Talking with Mark Tabb, the author of the book, The Sacred Acre, just out, that is available in bookstores around the country. Just kind of, let's go into the family now, which is probably the most surprising part. The Mark Becker's parents have been kind of given a community hug that starts with the Thomas family. So shed a little bit of light on what type of people the Thomases are, from Ed's wife to his children.
They're amazing. They're all very. They share the same faith that Ed had, a very deep faith in God. And they live that out. And, with, I guess, a way of understanding, just an insight into his wife, Jan. The day that he is killed, Ed's killed, and she was a paramedic, so she was one of the first responders on the scene. The police chief had to stop her from going inside because she would have been the very first paramedic on the scene. So she lives through this nightmare. It starts in the morning. It includes a helicopter flying Ed to a hospital in Cedar Rapids, and he's pronounced dead, and just all these nightmares that unfolds. And then they had to make a public statement because this is a national story. And at the end of this nightmare day, she goes into her room and shuts the door, picks up the phone, and calls the mother of the man who just shot her husband, and says to her, "Joan, I know, you're going through a hard time too, just like I am." That's Jan Thomas. That's the kind of character she has. Aaron and Todd are very much the same. I mean, Aaron was the one who, in the initial press conference that the family gave, Aaron stood up and he thanked everybody for their support and their prayers. And at the end of his statement, he said, "I want to make sure that everybody, just encourage everybody to reach out, to comfort and to pray for the Becker family because they're victims in this as well," or something to that effect. And when I asked Aaron about that later, he said, if I couldn't do that, then he said, then what did my dad's life mean? He said, because that's exactly the same thing my father would have done. So that's why I had to do that as well. And then Todd, when I talked with Todd, it had been just about a year, a little under a year since his father had been killed. I just lost my dad a few months ago, and he died of natural causes. But in this, their father's just been taken away, and I know a little about what that pain feels like. But as I talked to Todd, there was just such a peace. He said, he goes, I know my dad lived his life just with a clear mission and purpose. And he said, I just know that my dad had reached the last person God wanted him to reach. He had touched the last kid's life that he wanted him to reach, and it was time for him to go home. And he was at perfect peace with that. And I tell you, that is remarkable. Now, it doesn't mean that they don't still grieve and everything, but there's just that peace that radiates out from the family. They are truly remarkable people.
Wow, you just gave me chills, and I don't know that I would have a follow-up question to that. I just really appreciate you taking the time. I encourage people to go out and buy the book, The Sacred Acre, and I have not had a chance to get it yet, but I guarantee before I hop on a plane out of New York City tomorrow, I'm going to buy that and read it on the plane. So, Mark Tabb, it sounds like you have done a great job, because just hearing your words, the way you described it, I can't imagine that the book is anything other than superb.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Look forward to reading it.
Yep. Thanks for having me on.
You're welcome. That is Mark Tabb, the author of The Sacred Acre, the Ed Thomas story, and go out and buy it at your local bookstore. Taking a break. When we come back, we're going to go to Alaska as we talk with the head coach of the Service High School football team. That and more when we come back. You're listening to High School Football America on the Artist First Radio Network.
The hottest technology in the world isn't being developed in Silicon Valley. In the United States Navy, more top-secret technologies are being created than ever before. Incredible machines made of stealth materials that fly by themselves. The only problem with these incredible technologies? It's a shame the enemy can't see them. To learn more, call 1-800-USA-NAVY or visit Navy.com. Navy, accelerate your life. You've heard of being named All-Conference, but only one organization has earned the classification of being All-World: the United States Navy. Whether it's humanitarian efforts, fighting terrorism, or protecting America's freedoms, the Navy is the team that helps us all win big. To learn how you can make it to the big league, call 1-800-USA-NAVY or visit Navy.com. Navy, accelerate your life.
And now back to the show with your host, Jeff Fisher.
Thank you very much, Corey. Welcome back to High School Football America. Stops in Pennsylvania and Iowa so far. Next stop is Alaska as we head north to Anchorage, and going to talk about the Service High School football team with the head coach, Jason Caldarera. He is the head coach there, been there since 2000, and last week his team took on the beginning of the 2011 season by jetting to Hawaii to play the Fire and Ice Bowl, which was the first regular season game in America. Service has won 5 state titles in Alaska since 1994. They won the Alaska Large School title last in 2008, finishing runner-up last year. And, Coach, welcome to the show to talk a little bit about your program.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate the opportunity.
Oh, absolutely, and I always like to kind of start out, especially when we go to these small towns. Not that Anchorage is small, but not many people know about Alaska. So let's talk about the tradition of football at Service. Give us a little thumbnail sketch.
Well, not very many people know about Alaska football. There's probably 27 teams in the entire state that play. We have some geographic limitations, obviously, being separated from the lower 48, and it's just one of those things where we really need to work hard to get our kids exposure. So we're a large school in Anchorage, Alaska. We have about 1,900 kids, and we have traveled several times to different states to get some of our kids much-needed exposure and to play some high-level football, and like the game we just played against Leilehua High School in Oahu.
Well, I'm glad you spit that one out because I wasn't going to attempt that one. But let's talk about that Fire and Ice Bowl against that team you just said. You played in Hawaii. You kicked everything off. It was the only game in America last Thursday, the first one. So tell us about how that game came about with what is about a 6-hour flight, I guess.
Yeah, a 6-hour nonstop flight from Anchorage to Honolulu. And, this has been a game that has taken a lot of planning, a lot of preparation and hard work on our kids' part, on our parents, and certainly support from our community. But we have an assistant coach, my offensive and defensive coordinator, Numi Alalio, used to coach at Leilehua High School, and there's ties there. His son was born in the town that the high school's at, and Leilehua was the semifinalist in their large school playoffs, and a perennial playoff team, and just looked forward to the opportunity to play a high caliber team and showcase Alaska versus Hawaii. And what a great format, great opportunity, well covered, and our kids really learned a lot, and as well as the coaching staff, from the chance to play a team like that and to see Hawaii football.
Sure, and that's a good point there, because it's not always sometimes about the wins and losses. The game ended at a 34-all tie. We'll talk about that in a little bit. But what else did you do with the kids aside from the X's and O's to give them a kind of a once-in-a-lifetime experience?
Well, I think you hit it on target there. I mean, this is obviously the game was important, but the cultural exchange, the ability for our kids to interact and meet with kids from another state, to get out of our own little bubble. Leilehua, they were just gracious hosts, and we ate dinner with them on the night before, the day of, the day after, after the game, and then we went and saw another high school game on Friday. So the kids got to interact and mingle with each other, and it's just ending up in tie was okay, for the fact that those kids really learned to get along with each other and learn and do that cultural exchange.
It was close to a W. You had a 34-21 lead late in the game. They came back to tie it up. Now, tell us a little bit about this squad this year. 9-2 last year. You lost a couple of top players, I know, and your quarterback's back. So tell me a little bit about the kids that are key to your success this year.
Well, I mean, we're young. I mean, we do have quite a few kids back on the roster from that state championship game roster, but Amua Costantino, our quarterback, has Polynesian ties there, but what a tremendous athlete. And we've got a transfer kid from Barrow, Alaska. He played above the Arctic Circle last year, and he now is playing for us at Service, and he was that 290-pound back that we put in the heavy package, and he ran for 40 yards. So we've got some kids that certainly have some athleticism, and I think we surprised some people there in Hawaii. I mean, they do a great job producing and televising their games all over the island. So wherever we went, everybody just commented and the level that we're playing at, and we're surprised, and nobody really knew. So we're looking forward to. We run the spread offense, we run a zone run scheme, and it's preparing these kids for potential next level, and that's what we're trying to do, is just trying to bring the level of football up in Alaska, and you do that by playing great teams like Leilehua.
And we did talk with the team in Barrow. We talked with Brad Igo, the head coach there, on one of our earlier shows, since they're the only team above the Arctic Circle. So
right.
We educated a little bit on Alaska.
Okay.
But let's have you handicap kind of the large school division. Now you've got 3 divisions in Alaska this year. It used to be only the big and small. But who are some of the top teams in that large school division that's going to stand in the way of you guys getting back to a possible state championship game?
Well, the team that we were in the finals with, West High School, is one of my former assistants, and he's doing a tremendous job there at West Anchorage, and they're going to be tough. They run a similar offense, and they've got tremendous athletes. There's our perennial rival, Chugiak High School, runs a good power rushing game. They still run the wishbone and run it well, and so you'll see some of those traditional offenses, and there are teams that still run the wing tee and the fly up here because of the weather circumstances. But I think we've proved in Alaska, when it's minus 14 degrees in the state championship game, we can still attempt to throw the ball and do it well.
Well, you do have more challenges than the normal states have it, but it's been real fun to chat with you tonight and learn a little bit about Service, the high school, and a little bit about football in Alaska. So, Jason, I really appreciate it, and you have a great 2011.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate the opportunity.
You're welcome. That is Jason Caldarera, the head coach at Service High School in Anchorage, Alaska, kicking things off last week on Thursday with the first football game of the year between Alaska and Hawaii, called the Fire and Ice Bowl. And you can keep up with all of the coaches that we talked with throughout the season. Just go to our Facebook page, High School Football America, and you can check that out. Also go to highschoolfootballamerica.com for news from around the country. One more stop tonight, and we save the best for last. Many people believe that in Texas. The football that is Texas will come up next as we talk to Tony Heath, the head coach at Pearland High School, the defending Class 5A 5A Division I champs from last year. They had to upset the number one team in the country to claim that title, and now they're sitting on top of the world in Texas, which is a good place to be if you're a Texas high school football team. Going to talk to Coach Heath when we come back on High School Football America on the Artist First Radio Network.
The hottest technology in the world isn't being developed in Silicon Valley. In the United States Navy, more top-secret technologies are being created than ever before. Incredible machines made of stealth materials that fly by themselves. The only problem with these incredible technologies? It's a shame the enemy can't see them. To learn more, call 1-800-USA-NAVY or visit Navy.com. Navy, accelerate your life. You've heard of being named All-Conference, but only one organization has earned the classification of being All-World: the United States Navy. Whether it's humanitarian efforts, fighting terrorism, or protecting America's freedoms, the Navy is the team that helps us all win big. To learn how you can make it to the big league, call 1-800-USA-NAVY or visit Navy.com. Navy, accelerate your life. The Navy Seahawk helicopter has a lift capacity of over 6,000 pounds. But when it comes to helping those around the world who need it most, they lift the hopes of millions. To learn more about how the Navy is the best place to do great things, call 1-800-USA-NAVY or visit Navy.com. It will do you and the world a load of good. Navy, accelerate your life.
If you don't clean up your room, the Board of Health is going to condemn it.
The Board of Health doesn't even know about your room. What's more, they don't care.
You know, if you keep making that face, it's going to freeze that way.
Not unless you're someplace really, really cold. Actually, a lot of the warnings moms hand out are exaggerated.
If you don't get your blood pressure checked, you could have high blood pressure, not even know it, and you could die from a stroke.
But she's right about that one. Call the American Heart Association or visit our website to learn more.
I'm a good driver. I look for cars. I pay attention. I should have seen the little girl in the crosswalk.
Please, look for pedestrians. Stop for them. Think of the impact you could make. A message from the Federal Highway Administration.
And now back to the show with your host, Jeff Fisher.
Thank you, Corey. Welcome back to High School Football America. Quite a trek around America tonight. Talked with coaches in Pennsylvania and Alaska. Also a stop in Iowa for that heart-wrenching story of head coach Ed Thomas, who was murdered in the great book that's now out called The Sacred Acre. And we're going to finish the show up by heading down to Texas. Our final guest lays claim to the title that no other coach or team coming into the 2011 season in Texas can have. The Pearland Oilers are the defending Class 5A Division I champs after a fantastic 16-0 season last year. Saw them end up with a national ranking in just about every season-ending poll. And Tony Heath, who's beginning his 15th year at the suburban Houston school, has led this team for the last 15 years and just really built a winner down there. And Coach, welcome to the show to talk a little bit about Pearland High School football.
Man, thank you. I tell you what, I wish I was the coach from Alaska interviewing right now, as hot as it is down here in Texas.
Well, I know you guys just pulled off the field and had a late practice because of the heat. And before we get to 2011, I mentioned to you earlier when I talked to you today, I was there in Cowboy Stadium last year for the win over Trinity. A great season. 43,000 people screaming there. You win the school's first state championship. Has that feeling left you at this point yet?
No, it hasn't left. Hopefully it'll never leave. You know, as a football coach or anybody, you want to hopefully reach the top of your program. And in the state of Texas, the highest you can go is win the Division 5A1 state championship. We were able to achieve that. And it's a great feeling that hopefully everybody, not only the players, but the whole community will cherish for here on out. But as we've talked, you know, that's come and gone, and it's time to get ready for the 2011 season.
Let's talk a little bit about you. It did get you, Max Prep's National Coach of the Year last year. Your record with the Oilers, 133-38. Not bad considering before you got on board from 90 to 96, I read that the program's record was 6 wins, 63 losses, and a tie. So you've definitely turned it around. So let's go back to the early days before we go to 2011. What did you instill in that program back in the early 90s or mid 90s that's paying dividends to this day?
Actually, the program was 9-90-1. If you want to add a few more games, they'd only won 9 games in 10 years. But the thing, I came from a program, Lamarck High School here in Texas, and we've been in 4 state championships in a row, won the last 2. So I've been around winning programs, and I brought hopefully a winning attitude here. And and what that was no different than every day going to work. It's roll up your sleeves and go do an honest day's work. Be enthusiastic about what you're doing. If you're going to do it your best. And we've carried that attitude with our coaching staff. We carried it in these kids, made them believe in themselves. And not just make it words, make it action. We have a big motto here that this game, honestly and truly, 80% mental, 10% physical, and 10% luck. And we want to, and we've emphasized that mental part. When we talk about enthusiasm, we instill it. We don't only just talk about it. We try to make sure our kids are enthusiastic for what they do. When we talk about commitment, we make sure they are committed. If they're, you give them 100, or we pull them back, and you're going to go 100 or nothing. So that's a big thing that I think we instill. It's just the mental part of this football game and mental part about life.
Sure. Now, you've got a job to do. You've got momentum coming into 2011, but we all know momentum is a two-edged sword there. So you got the momentum with the kids coming back and all that. What sort of advantage does it give you coming into this camp that you're now in the middle of?
Well, the big thing is these kids, they know they can win here. They know we have a program established. We won our first state championship here, but we had gone to the state semis 2 years previous, in the 15 years. We've been in the playoffs last 11. So tradition has carried these kids. They carry a little tradition on the shoulders. They know that the guys in the past are looking for them to carry that tradition, and so we put that pressure on them. The one big thing that we have to guard right now is entitlement. These kids, they didn't just win the state championship. They earned it. They beat the best, and they didn't do it by just showing up. And that's what we've talked about to our kids every day. And we feel like we had a good summer camp, good off season. And as we told them, this thing didn't start 2 weeks ago. It started back in January. So we're looking forward to seeing the progress we've made and see where this process is going to carry us.
Now you've got two big people that came off of that squad that graduated. Trey Anderson, your quarterback, trying to walk on at Pitt. You had your running back, Dustin Garrison, rushing for 2,400 yards. He's on his way to West Virginia. So tell us about who the replacements are and some of the other key kids on this squad this year.
Yeah, we lose Trey. He's up in Pittsburgh, and Dustin at West Virginia. Also lost Sam Ukawachi, the guy that caught the trick play and played defensive end. He's at Boise State, and a few others. But we got kids to replace. We had one kid, Jake Garner, who's our starting outside linebacker, is a sophomore. Started I think 14 games on defense. We flipped him over to quarterback. Tough kid with tough mentality. Jackie Robinson, who rushed for 500 yards last year as a backup tailback. He'll be our running back, and we've got a good core on defense coming back. We start with our probably our top linebacker. He's back, committed to Baylor already, and Kendall Ehrlich. We've got our 2 DTs who started 16 games. The strength of our program right now is our defense. We're kind of done a 180 as far as we look at the strengths of it. Last year, we feel like we'd go in any game and have the chance to score 40-plus games. I don't know if that's the case right now, but defense, I feel like our defense is a lot stronger than it was last year. So we're going to live by the defense. Hopefully, offensively, we'll be smart enough not to put them in a bad situation, and until the offense comes around and gets, hopefully get better each week.
High School Football America talking to Tony Heath, the head coach of Pearland High School outside of Houston. And let's let you do a little bit of a handicapping this year in your district. Who are some of the top teams that stand in your way this year in District 24-5A?
24-5A, it's a very competitive district. Obviously, I think the first school you have to look at is a school that's only about 4 years old, and that's Clear Springs. They have I believe they signed more D1 players last year than anybody in the Houston area. They've got some good kids coming back. I know they've got 2 or 3 D1 already pre-commits. that's on their team. A lot of speed, a lot of athleticism. So you got to rank them up there, a team to challenge with. Along with Clear Creek, who went to the regionals last year. They got guys back. And, you got Clearbrook, Brazoswood, who's always, they find a way to win. It's a very competitive district. The thing about down here in the Houston area, and I think that's why so many recruiters come down here, there's so many good quality athletes, not only, athletes, but quality kids. We get a lot of kids recruited out of here, but it's not just because of athleticism, it's because they know they make the grades as well. So it's going to be a challenge.
Well, again, last year you were Max Prep's National Coach of the Year. I know it probably meant a lot to you, but I don't want to ask you about that. What I want to ask you about is being a football coach in Texas, because I love talking to Texas high school football coaches, but they'll also say it's not cracked up as much as cool as it seems, because there's a lot of pressure. So how do you describe being a high school football coach in this crazy state of Texas when it comes to high school football?
You can call me crazy, but I take it one that, you have one division that might be a little, and that's Division 1A college football. Then I think, you have the Division 2s and 3s and all that, but I rank Texas high school football, especially 5A, right below those guys as far as the pressure, as far as the commitment, as far as the people that have interest in it. Schools, I mean, we have a bad season. The pressure's on me. They'll change. You don't win, you don't stay. The administration, coaches, number one, they want quality education out of our kids. They want them to go to class and graduate just like they do in college, but they want a quality football team. They want you to produce a football team here that can play. They give you the resources, and they want you to produce with it. And it's anything. As long as you're given the resources and give the opportunity, shoot, it's a great challenge, and it's a fun challenge. But there is pressure here in Texas.
Well, you've done a great job with it. I've enjoyed, learning from afar and reading up on you before having you come on the show. So thank you for coming off the practice field and taking the time to talk to America about Pearland High School.
Man, I appreciate it. And, again, hey, thanks for all you guys, what you do, because, y'all are putting high school football, we're getting important. It's important. And just you guys promoting it, we really appreciate it.
Well, you're very welcome, and we appreciate all the things that you do for the young men around America. So thanks, and have a great 2011.
All right, we'll holler at you later. Bye now.
Okay, take care. That's head coach Tony Heath of Pearland High School, and we're just about out of time here. So we want to thank Coach Heath and our other guest on the show tonight, Coach Phil Stambaugh, Pius X High School in Roseto, Pennsylvania. We also had on the show Jason Caldarera of Service High School in Anchorage, Alaska, and then Mark Tabb, author of The Sacred Acre, the Ed Thomas story. Go out to the bookstore and pick that one up. It's a great story about a tragic incident in Iowa, but how a town has come together with grace and forgiveness. So a lot of good stuff. Want to thank our sponsors on tonight's show, Blitz Group. Go to blitzgroupllc.com to learn more. The High School Rudy Awards at highschoolrudyawards.com, and the National High School Coaches Association at nhsca.com. Quite a fun show tonight, and if you missed any of it, look at the archives. Just go to highschoolfootballamerica.com to get all those archive stories, and we'll be back next week, Thursday night, 7 o'clock Eastern Time, to talk more high school football when a bunch of states hop into the fray and 2011 really gets rolling, and we'll have all the big stories and interviews for you on every High School Football America show. I'd like to thank Corey back in Ohio for engineering the show and getting it done for us tonight, and I'll talk to you next Thursday. You've been listening to High School Football America on the Artist First Radio Network.
The hottest technology in the